The envelope felt wrong the moment Elara touched it, as if the paper itself held a faint warmth, like something alive breathing just beneath its surface. The golden ink of her name shimmered unnaturally, catching light that wasn't there, and for a moment she hesitated before opening it, a strange unease settling in her chest. Inside, the message was simple, almost mocking in its brevity: tell the story, and it will tell itself. When she showed it to Kieran, Sui, and Milo, none of them laughed the way they usually would at something eerie. Instead, there was a shared silence, heavy and uncomfortable, before curiosity took over. By nightfall, they stood before the abandoned Willow Creek Library, its tall windows dark and hollow like empty eyes, the door creaking open with a sound that echoed far deeper than it should have, as if the building itself had been waiting for them to arrive. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something older, something that clung to their skin and made every breath feel heavier than the last. Their footsteps stirred faint echoes that didn't quite match their movements, trailing just a second behind, like something mimicking them. Elara's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the card and began to read, her voice soft but carrying unnaturally far through the silent library. As the first lines left her lips, the shadows along the walls shifted, not dramatically, not enough to notice at first, but just enough to feel wrong. Shelves seemed taller, darker, stretching upward into a ceiling that felt farther away than before. Kieran tried to brush it off, but his voice sounded strained, and even Sui, usually so composed, kept glancing over her shoulder as if she could feel something watching them from between the aisles. With every sentence Elara spoke, the story grew heavier, pressing into the space around them like a physical force. Milo's pencil scratched rapidly across his notebook, but the images forming beneath his hand weren't entirely his own. Shapes emerged that he didn't remember drawing, figures with hollow outlines and unnatural proportions. Sui froze mid-step when she noticed one of those same shapes standing at the end of a distant aisle, unmoving, its presence subtle but unmistakable. When she blinked, it was gone, yet the feeling remained, like a stain on reality that wouldn't wash away. The library no longer felt abandoned, it felt occupied, alive in a way that made the walls seem closer, the air tighter, as if the building itself was listening, responding, reshaping itself to match the story being told. It happened so quickly that none of them fully understood it at first. Elara read a line about a boy being pulled into darkness, her voice catching slightly on the words, and in that exact moment, Kieran's breath hitched. His shadow stretched unnaturally along the floor, distorting, thinning, until it seemed to detach from him entirely. He tried to step back, confusion flashing across his face, but something unseen held him in place. The darkness at his feet deepened, swallowing the edges of his shoes, climbing upward in silence. There was no dramatic scream, no sudden movement, just the horrifying stillness of him being erased, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but an empty space where he had been standing. The silence that followed was far worse than any noise, heavy and suffocating, pressing down on the three who remained. Panic set in like a spreading fracture, sharp and impossible to contain. Elara's voice shook as she tried to change the narrative, forcing new words into existence, but the story resisted, twisting her intentions into something darker. The card burned faintly in her hands, the edges blackening as if rejecting her control. Around them, the library reacted violently, books slid from shelves without being touched, landing with dull thuds that echoed too long, too loudly. Sui clung to Milo, her grip tightening as whispers began to seep through the air, repeating fragments of their thoughts in voices that weren't theirs. Milo's notebook filled faster than he could process, his drawings now moving slightly on the page, shifting when he wasn't looking directly at them. Every attempt to escape only seemed to deepen the nightmare, as if the story was rewriting itself to trap them more completely. It was Sui who noticed the pattern, her fear sharpening into focus as she pieced together the truth hidden beneath the chaos. The story only took form when it was spoken. Every horror, every movement, every impossible detail began the moment Elara gave it a voice. "Stop reading," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor beneath it, but the moment Elara tried, the card flared with heat, forcing the words forward, pulling them out of her as if they no longer belonged to her. The realization settled heavily over them, the story wasn't just reacting, it was demanding to be completed. The only way out was through, but finishing it meant surrendering to whatever ending it had already decided. The shadows around them pulsed faintly, as though waiting, patient and certain, knowing they had no other choice. Elara's voice was barely steady as she reached the final lines, each word dragging against her throat like something resisting its release. She forced herself to imagine safety, to shape the ending into something merciful, though doubt lingered with every breath. As the last sentence left her lips, the library fell into an unnatural stillness, the kind that felt too complete, too sudden to be real. The shadows withdrew, flattening back into their proper places, the whispers fading into nothing. For a moment, none of them moved, afraid that even the slightest sound might undo it all. Then, slowly, the tension eased, and the space around them returned to its original decay, a dust, silence, emptiness. But something had changed. The card lay on the floor once more, blank and harmless in appearance, yet none of them dared to touch it again. As they left the library behind, the air outside felt colder than it should have, and somewhere, carried faintly on the wind, was the quiet suggestion of a voice waiting to be heard again.